Good afternoon, and welcome to Jeff and the Rabbi. It was a tough week for the Jews, Rabbi. The mass killing in a Pittsburgh synagogue is the worst anti-Semitic act in U.S. history. Why is this happening in America today? The killer, on social media, blamed the Jews for controlling President Trump, whom he hated. The media blamed President Trump because they said he inspires hatred. Donald Trump seems to be hated equally by the killer and the media. Is he somehow the cause of this horrific slaughtering of the Jews? Nope. The gruesome carnage in Pennsylvania was the result of good old-fashioned anti-Semitism. Governments and political parties come and go around the world. People and technology continually progress to meet the needs of the modern age. The only constant in this world seems to be the hatred of the Jews. The left in America and Europe claims supreme righteousness by welcoming with open arms all types of migrants into their lands. They pride themselves in their virtuous morality, but not for the Jews. Not for the one group of people who have contributed more to the society than any other. Not for the children and grandchildren of the Untermensch that their parents and grandparents exterminated by the millions. The progressive elites of today's societies march for women's rights, but during the same protest, demand boycotts of Israel. They rebuke racism and at the same time denounce the greedy Jews of Wall Street. Radical left-wing college students stand up for ISIS and Islam while they proudly join the BDS campus organizations and harass Jewish students. How can the progressive world pride themselves in labeling people like me a hater because I don't bow down to the god of climate change, but at the same time proclaim that the IDF is using Nazi-like tactics by shooting and killing terrorists that are attacking their borders? Anti-Semitism cannot be explained by natural and rational answers. After the Egyptians and the Persians and the pogroms and the Nazis, you would think that the medieval hatred of the Jews would come to an end. There has to be something godly going on here. None of this makes any sense. There has to be some reason that God does not want the people of the world to approve of the Jews. Rabbi, you have some serious explaining to do this week. Why is it impossible for us Jews to be accepted by the rest of the world? Will we ever be allowed to live our lives in the most advanced and moral societies without having to worry when the next shoe is going to drop?
Well, first of all, I wanted to say that I'm really honored, as always, to be here on behalf of the God Party.
Yes,
and representing the God thing.
That's why you're here.
Big shoulders to have to represent the God thing, but there is a big underlying point that anytime something like this happens, this has happened many times. This has happened in a church in Charleston not so long ago. Number of mostly black worshipers, as I understand it, were killed there, and that was pretty horrific also. And in this case, it was Jews in Pittsburgh, so I feel a certain kinship to them, to them, and therefore, this is horrific. But these things have happened. And a lot of people are out there really plugging. They seem to have found the theme for this particular series of events is because of a climate of hatred that is being expounded by or enabled by President Trump. That seems to be the popular theory.
I hear that often on CNN.
Right. Now the thing is, whenever any of these things happen, whenever any horrific thing happens, any calamity or any act of violence happens, generally, whatever you were for is what you will attribute it to. So if you were for gun control, then obviously it was because there's not enough gun control. If you're for Democrats, obviously you're going to attribute it to Republicans. If you're a Republican, obviously it's going to be Democrats, and so on and so forth. Usually everyone will pretty much play out this event clearly, beyond a shadow of a doubt, endorses exactly what I've been saying all along. That's almost always what happens.
Especially a week before an election.
Right,
but
right.
Yes,
That's almost always what happens.
Yeah.
Right. So we know that it's probably not any of the above.
Right.
So what's really going on? Because, yes, this guy, and whatever you want to attribute his particular rant to, but the fact that he felt violent and needed to express himself by killing a bunch of people, how come it ended up going back to Jews? How come in every other country that the Jews have visited in, similar events have happened? Sometimes on smaller scales, where just a number of Jews have been, let's say, massacred in a synagogue or some other place, and sometimes on huge scales where hundreds of thousands or millions have been killed. Why does it keep coming back to that same group? Now you could say it's because the Jews are outsiders, right? And usually when these people, when the wacko people, when the angry people want to vent their anger, they go after the outsiders. And that is kind of a step towards the answer. But I think to really understand the answer, you have to really understand the role that Jews play in the world. Because the Jews truly are perpetual outsiders. The Jews are more outsiders than anyone else.
Which is odd, since they're one of the only peoples that have been around for 3,000 years, and they don't seem to have a home.
Right.
Even when they have a home, they don't seem to have a home.
And wherever they go, they end up being outsiders, no matter how much insiders they get to be. And when they become really, really big insiders, then everyone's really upset with them because they're taking over.
That happens everywhere.
See, if they're outsiders, they're weird and they're strange, and we don't like them. If they become insiders and they start to get involved, so you've got the arguments. This is like the classic Trump. See, like they're taking over his own daughter and his son-in-law and all his people. They're all Jewish, and so
whispering in his ear.
If you get to be too much in, they hate you. If you're too much out, they hate you. If you're in the middle, they probably also hate you.
At first, when they said you're shepherds, no one else wants to be a shepherd. That's, I guess, what they were told at first. They were great, but then they got too big.
Get out of here, right? Get out of here. We don't like you. We don't like you grazing here, and so on and so forth. So the thing is that we have to understand, regardless of what the particular issues were in this particular event, as Jews, we put this in a context. There's a great, huge context of hundreds of years of events after events after events. Events that took place centuries before guns were invented, centuries before there was Nazism, and but there have always been certain phobias, hatreds that people have, and they seem to have always vented them on the Jews. Now, they vented them on a lot of other people also, but not consistently on the Jews from country to country and continent to continent to continent. Right. A lot of different peoples have suffered in a lot of different places in their time. They've all had a round where they were persecuted. But the Jews are certainly the only ones that can claim having been persecuted on multiple continents and in multiple eras and centuries and so on. What's going on? So the issue to understand here is, and it's an issue that even if they get to the bottom of it and they say, yes, we'll take away all the guns, or yes, we will close down all the hateful news sites, we will muzzle the president so they can't, his hate, whatever it is that they come up with, I'm sorry to say, it will probably still find another mode of expression. And the reason is because the Jewish people are in exile. And this is something that the Jewish people really need to understand. They have to look at themselves in their historical context. And they really don't. Jews tend not to. I've heard many people saying recently, who would have thought in this day and age, really, in this day and age, did everyone think that, like, in 1945, the world universally decided not to be anti-Semitic? What do you mean, this day and age? Why is this day and age any different than any other day and age? And what was it that taught all the world not to be anti-Semitic? This anti-Semitism has certainly been around and certainly been boiling and roiling for forever, and even in recent times, it never really went away. But what is it about the Jews? The Jews are in exile. They're supposed to be in Israel, but they've been exiled. And they've been wandering around the world. And as they wander around the world, part of wandering around the world is you're treated as an outsider. And as much as people want to preach, accept the outsider and understand them and welcome them, but people are not always comfortable with outsiders, with strangers. People don't like someone's walking around in their backyard. They just don't. They're uncomfortable. And the Jews are always sort of like walking around in everybody's backyard. They're perpetually being treated like outsiders, because they are outsiders. Jews come from another place, and were actually sent away from that place, as the story goes. That would be the Bible. Mm-hmm. As the story goes in the Bible, they were sent away from that place, because they hadn't done what it takes to merit living in that place, and being sent away from that place. The way the punishment works is, wherever you go, you're treated like an outsider. And when you're treated like an outsider, people always blame you for everything. Whatever happens, the outsider is always perpetually blamed. That's the way it is. Maybe people think they can fix it now. Maybe we're more enlightened now. I doubt it, because there have been a lot of enlightened times and places and eras. As a matter of fact, as I always like to say, everyone who has ever lived in modern times.
Good point there.
Yeah.
But do you understand? I mean, and I know exactly where you're coming from. Why people of today would be a little shocked at this. I mean, we live in a time where we want to open borders. We want to welcome in the strangers who have nothing to contribute to society. We want to welcome them in. We want to show how open we are. We want people to come from lands where there's terrorism. We welcome them in Europe, and we welcome here to America. But right now, in the most progressive, wide open time that we've ever had in America, let's say, there are groups of people where it's okay to dislike Jews. It's not okay to dislike Muslims or people from Honduras, but it's accepted. Just 2-3 weeks ago, Louis Farrakhan compared Jews to termites that they need to be slaughtered, and multiple members of a political party are as close as they can be with Louis Farrakhan.
Yeah.
So you see how it's just this contradiction here. It doesn't make any sense,
right?
To someone watching without thinking there's something else going on here.
It is unexplainable unless you say that the Jews have been appointed as the world's permanent outsider.
Wow, that's a tough
the
role.
Permanent outsider,
Wow.
which means that this Nazi Bowers will hate them, and
Right.
Louis Farrakhan will hate them, and
Wow.
people on all directions. And of course, the Jews will be blamed for being globalists, being George Soros,
Right.
and they will also be blamed for manipulating the currency and holding all the money to themselves and being rapacious capitalists and all that, which, you can find some of them too.
Right.
So they're going to catch it one way or another. They're going to get it coming or going. The bottom line is that the Jews need to come to terms with their otherness. Their otherness, and the otherness means that people are always, this guy is going to come up with it is because the Jews are organizing the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, and the Jews are organizing the caravans that are bringing these people to America. Okay, that's one group. Then they're going to be blamed by other groups for being the ones that are organizing the gassing and the poisoning of all the immigrants that want to come to America. So they'll get it in one direction or the other. It's always going to happen.
Even when we try so hard to fit in society, we Hollywood, we're as liberal as we can. We attack anything about religion. We stand for everything that should make us be accepted. We're not religious, and we don't talk about the Torah anymore. In fact, that's embarrassing.
Right.
We're as liberal and progressive as we be. Can we still be hated as outsiders?
That is the sadness.
Steven Spielberg's an outsider?
Yeah, that's the sadness that befell so many Jews when the Nazis came to power in Germany, and they had worked so hard to become good Germans. They were good Germans. They were better Germans than the Germans were. They were number one, top of the line, good Germans, made all kinds of contributions to German society, loved it. They loved it. They integrated its values. The bottom line is, things will always happen that will perpetually remind a Jew that he is an outsider. Now, the only people that really do well in this circumstance are the people that identify themselves as outsiders. So if they identify themselves as outsiders, first of all, they're never caught by surprise.
Right.
And second of all, they go about doing their business and are never, ever disappointed or don't mind. Someone says, when someone hollers out the window at me, Jew. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I got it. Yeah, that's right.
I am one of
Good,
those.
very observant.
You got that right.
Very observant, thank you. Yes, next, please.
Wow.
Right? Doesn't matter. Now, sometimes they're going to be violent, and I understand that. I understand that. That's why I pray that ultimately God takes all the Jews back home where they belong and brings them back within their borders, and that will be a nice thing. That's a thing that we pray for and we yearn for and we look forward to. And in the meantime, we realize that we are living in a country, and to tell you the truth, even with the horror that happened in Pittsburgh and this poor innocent people being massacred, even so, by and large, we Jews do enjoy the largesse of the society and a comfort, and as identifiably Orthodox Jew, I enjoy a tremendous amount of comfort in this country to be able to walk around and do and function almost with impunity. But I do remember and remind myself all the time that nonetheless, I have to be thankful that it's going well, but I'm not really part of it. I am thankful to it. I have gratitude to it. I want to contribute to it. It's been good to me, this society, but ultimately I've got somewhere to go, and that's back home.
Well, I mean, I love the fact that as Jews are such great long-term thinkers, and that's great. But in the short term, and I understand how you feel, but when is that shoe going to drop? You just got to look at France right now. In France, you couldn't wear your kippah walking around in parts of Paris right now, just because they've let in so many different kind of migrants that are very much against you in other countries, and we got to realize that we're not far behind all that. So it's,
that is true. That is true, and there are migrants and there are migrants. Listen, I happen to be the grandson of 4 migrants. So
right.
I'm not a big anti-migrant person because
I love the migrants. I don't think I mean I come from migrants.
My 4
as well.
migrant grandparents came to America, and I think that they did pretty good. I think they did good for the country. I think they were good for the country to let them in. Certainly, it was good for me that they let them in. I was pretty happy about that. So I'm not by and by the way, also, if you want to really talk, we can get off into a migrant discussion,
right.
But. Growing populations make for healthy countries. And since this country doesn't have a growing population from its own birth rate, the way that it manages to maintain itself is by adding new people from outside. Many other countries, like if you look at Russia, even Japan, they're shrinking.
Well, they're
wasting
years,
away.
Yeah.
They're just wasting away.
Well,
literally. It'll really be their demise.
Immigration's not a bad thing. It's just usually you have to choose where you want. I mean, example, my great grandmother, who I knew was a migrant, but I can't imagine Bubba walking around with an axe or a gun and trying to hurt somebody. She's about, well, when I knew her, she was about 4'9". She might have been taller at some point.
Right. And my grandparents also, they came in illegally. They did present themselves. So really that's the real problem is that the country does not have a way to allow immigration. We don't have a good, effective system that works. But that really is beside the point.
Right.
Even if we have an effective migrant immigration system,
we're still going to be more on the outside than the migrants.
And even if we have gun control,
right.
And even if we wipe out all the hate speech and all the incendiary comments,
right.
and even, the
right.
bottom line is, since every society has at some point or another singled out the Jew as being an outsider, regretfully, this is something that will continue to happen, and this is why Jews have to understand themselves. There is no short term for the Jews. The only way for a Jew can look at himself is in the big picture, long term, coming from somewhere, going to somewhere. But as an end stop, it's never going to work out. Wow. At least not if they want to continue to be a Jew. The only way to make this an end stop is to eradicate the Jewish identity. But to still be a Jew and be at home, no, we're not allowed to because we're in the exile, and we're not allowed to feel at home in the exile, because if you feel at home in the exile, you're not in the exile.
So even with my stylish, groovy haircut and my awesome looking clothes here, I'm not fitting in. I'm eventually going to be could be put on the same car with you, the same little cattle car with you.
Yeah, they know.
That's not a good thing.
They know. No matter how right wing you get,
yes,
the right wingers will still turn on you.
No matter what they're doing.
But that doesn't mean you should go be left wing, because they'll turn on you too.
They'll turn on me too.
So
wow, you don't paint a really good picture here for us Jews here, Rabbi. Not really well.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting conversation, and I guess the real bottom line here. It is a godly answer. There's nothing we can do. There's nothing. We can't conform enough. We can't blend in enough. There's nothing we can really do to survive as Jews and to carry out our purpose.
Right.
That we have a purpose, and to carry out that
right.
purpose.
We can stand out,
Right.
recognize our otherness, embrace that, understand who we are, that we're people that are a different people who have a certain mission in the world and in life. And then, once we understand that, once we embrace that, and we know that God's watching out for us, then things will start to work out.
Makes sense. So I guess sometimes it's tough to be the chosen people. Yeah,
That's right.
All right. Well,
That
good.
is right.
All right. Well, it was a tough week. Hopefully next week will be a little better for the Jews. But in the long run, in the long term, I guess we're heading down the right path.
Yeah. Next week will be better for the Jews. The next day, we had there was a circumcision scheduled for that synagogue
Right.
in Pittsburgh on yesterday morning, Shabbos morning, Sunday morning, Shabbos morning, Saturday morning, and they so that was supposed to be like a celebration of life. Well, in our synagogue on Sunday morning, we had a circumcision that was
that's
attended
tough,
by a
right?
large crowd, and that is the answer, and that is the protest, that's the rebuttal, that's the rejoinder. We went ahead and had a circumcision and welcomed in the next generation and invested in that child the mission of being a Jew.
Excellent. All right. Well, that's all we can do.
That's right.
All right. Well, God willing, we will be back next week with another episode of Jeff and the Rabbi.